They say a dog's loyalty runs deeper than blood, but I never believed it until I found Rex dying on Highway 89 that cold Montana morning. Blood soaked through his matted golden coat, mixing with the dust and gravel where he'd crawled off the asphalt. His breathing came in shallow, desperate gasps, each one a fight against whatever hell he'd escaped from. I should have driven past. At 72, with arthritic hands and a heart that skips beats, I had no business stopping for what looked like roadkill. But those brown eyes found mine through my truck's windshield, and something in them reminded me of my boy Marcus before he shipped out to Afghanistan 3 years ago. The German shepherd tried to lift his head when I approached, a low whine escaping his throat. A bullet had torn through his shoulder, and Lord knows how long he'd been bleeding out here in the middle of nowhere. His collar was torn, barely hanging on, but I could make out part of what looked like military tags underneath the dried blood. "Easy there, soldier," I whispered, my voice cracking. Time was running out for both of us. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. My old Ford groaned under the weight as I lifted Rex into the truck bed, his body limp but still breathing. Blood stained my flannel shirt. But I'd seen worse in Vietnam. What I hadn't seen was a dog this size move with such trust, even while dying. He never snapped, never growled, just looked at me with those intelligent brown eyes that seemed to say, "I've been waiting for you." The drive to Dr. Emma Mitchell's veterinary clinic felt like the longest 20 minutes of my life. Every pothole sent a jolt through Rex's wounded body, and I found myself talking to him through the rear window. "Stay with me, boy. Don't you dare give up now. When it rains, it pours," my Martha used to say, and hadn't it been pouring on the Harper family for 3 long years? Emma's clinic sat on the outskirts of Glacier Falls, a converted farmhouse with a hand-painted sign that still made my chest tight every time I saw it. She'd been our little girl once, adopted when she was 8 after her parents died in a car wreck. Now at 45, she barely acknowledged my existence. I burst through the clinic doors carrying Rex, his dead weight making my back scream in protest. "Emma, I need help." She looked up from her paperwork, her face hardening the moment she saw me. "William Harper, what are you doing here? This dog's been shot. He's lost a lot of blood." I laid Rex on her examination table, his breathing so shallow I could barely see his chest rise. Emma's professional instincts kicked in despite our history. Her hands moved expertly over Rex's body, checking vitals, assessing the wound. "This is a through-and-through gunshot. He needs surgery immediately, but—" She paused, meeting my eyes for the first time in 15 years. "It'll cost $3,000, and even then, I can only give him a 50-50 chance." "Do it, William. You don't understand. He'll need round-the-clock care for weeks, blood transfusions, physical therapy. This isn't some farm dog. This animal has extensive training. Military, by the looks of his build and conditioning." I watched Rex's ears twitch at the word military, and something cold settled in my stomach. "What makes you say that?" The way he positioned himself even while unconscious protective stance. And this. She lifted his torn collar, revealing a glint of metal underneath. "These look like military tags." The room spun slightly. It couldn't be. Marcus's canine partner had died with him in Afghanistan. The Army told me so themselves. We have maybe 4 hours before we lose him, Emma said quietly. What do you want me to do? 3 years ago, Marcus stood in this very clinic, his arm around a magnificent German shepherd whose coat gleamed like spun gold in the afternoon sunlight. I can still see him clear as day, 28 years old and proud as a peacock in his army uniform, introducing me to his partner like he was bringing home a girlfriend. Dad, meet Rex, Marcus had said, his hand resting on the dog's broad head. Best nose in the K-9 Corps, according to his trainers. Saved my squad twice already, and we've only been together 6 months. I'd been polishing my Purple Heart at the kitchen table when they walked in. The same ritual I'd done every Sunday since coming home from Vietnam. The medal caught the light, and Rex's eyes had tracked to it immediately, his tail wagging with what I swear was recognition. He's impressive, son, I'd admitted, though my stomach was already knotting with worry. But you know how I feel about this deployment. Marcus's jaw had tightened the way it always did when we talked about his military service. We've been through this. Dad, it's what I'm called to do. Called? I'd set the medal down harder than necessary. Boy, I've seen what war does to good men. I've lived it. You think God's calling you to that hell? Maybe he's calling me to make a difference in it. Emma had been there too. 17 then, and caught between her loyalty to the brother who'd always defended her and the father who'd raised them both. She'd been accepted to veterinary school early, my bright girl with gentle hands and a fierce heart for healing. But the tension in our house had been thick enough to cut with a knife. Why can't you support him? She'd demanded after Marcus and Rex left for base. He's trying to honor your service. Honor? I'd laughed bitterly. There's no honor in what I did over there. Emma girl. I killed boys who looked just like Marcus, and for what? So politicians could play chess with our lives. That's not what Marcus is doing, and you know it. But I'd been too stubborn, too scared, too eaten up with my own demons to see past my fear of losing him. Blood makes you related. Loyalty makes you family. My own father had taught me. But I'd forgotten the loyalty part somewhere between the nightmares and the bourbon. The fight that drove Emma away happened 2 weeks before Marcus shipped out. She'd been defending his choice to join the military's K-9 search and rescue program, specialized work that would take him into Taliban territory looking for IEDs and missing soldiers. At least try to understand, she'd pleaded. He's not going there to kill people. Dad, he's going to save them. And who's going to save him? I'd shot back, my voice rising with 3 decades of buried rage. Who saved Tommy Patterson when he stepped on that mine? Who saved Eddie Morrison when the shrapnel tore through his chest? Those were different wars, different times. Death is death, Emma, and I'll be damned if I'm going to smile and wave while my boy marches off to it. She'd stared at me then, this girl I'd loved like my own blood, with tears streaming down her face. You know what your problem is. William Harper. You're so busy fighting ghosts from 40 years ago that you can't see the people standing right in front of you who need you. Don't you dare. Marcus needs his father's blessing, not his fear. And I need... Her voice had broken. I need you to trust that I can make my own choices without you treating me like I'm still that broken 8-year-old you took in. You'll always be my little girl. No, she'd said quietly, gathering her veterinary textbooks from the kitchen table. I was your little girl. But little girls grow up. Dad, And sometimes they have to leave home to figure out who they're meant to be. She'd moved out that night, taking a job at the animal shelter in town to pay for her own apartment. Marcus had tried to mediate, bringing Rex over for dinner every Sunday before deployment, the dog serving as a buffer between his father's anger and his sister's hurt. "She's right, you know," Marcus had said during our last dinner together. Rex lay at his feet, those intelligent brown eyes moving between us like he understood every word. "About fighting ghosts. Son, Dad, I'm not asking you to agree with my choices. I'm asking you to trust me to make them." He'd reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "And if something happens to me over there, don't. If something happens, I need you to promise me you'll take care of each other, you and Emma, and Rex." I'd pulled my hand away, unable to face the possibility. "Nothing's going to happen. A man's word is his bond, Dad." "That's what you taught me. Promise me." "I promise," I'd said, the words tasting like ashes in my mouth. But when the chaplain came to my door 8 months later with Marcus's death certificate, when they told me he'd died saving a group of Afghan children from a roadside bomb, I'd already failed that promise. Emma hadn't come to the funeral. She'd tried. I'd seen her standing at the back of the cemetery in her black dress, tears streaming down her face. But my pride, my anger, my overwhelming grief had built a wall between us that neither of us knew how to climb. The Army had told me Rex died in the same explosion that killed Marcus. Heroes both. They'd said. Their bodies recovered together. They'd said. I'd even received a letter of condolence about the loss of such a distinguished service animal. But here I was, 3 years later, watching Emma's hands work to save a dog that looked exactly like the one I'd watched walk out of my life with my son. The same intelligent brown eyes, the same protective instincts, the same unconscious response to military commands. "Emma," I said quietly as she prepared Rex for surgery, "that dog, he responded when you said, 'military.'" She paused, her gloved hands still for a moment. "I noticed that too. What if—" I couldn't finish the thought. It was impossible. The Army didn't make mistakes about things like that. "William," her voice was softer than it had been in years, "let me save his life first. Then we'll figure out who he really is." As she wheeled Rex into the surgical suite, I sank into one of the waiting room chairs, my arthritic knees giving out under the weight of possibility and grief. Through the window, I could see Marcus's grave on the hill behind the clinic, the American flag snapping in the Montana wind. If this was Rex Marcus's Rex, then everything the Army had told me was a lie. And if they'd lied about the dog, what else had they lied about? The surgery stretched into its 4th hour, and I'd worn a path in Emma's waiting room, linoleum pacing like an expectant father. Every time the surgical suite doors swung open, my heart jumped. But it was always just Emma's assistant checking supplies or updating the monitoring equipment. At noon, she finally emerged, surgical mask hanging around her neck, exhaustion etched in every line of her face. "He's stable," she said, and I felt my knees nearly buckle with relief. "The bullet missed all the major organs, but he's lost a dangerous amount of blood. We've got him on IV fluids, antibiotics, and pain management. Can I see him? In a few minutes. William." She hesitated, then reached into her coat pocket. I found these inside his collar during surgery. My breath caught in my throat as she placed 2 military dog tags in my palm. The metal was warm from her hands, worn smooth at the edges from years of wear. I read the inscription with shaking fingers. Rex, K9 Unit 4th BCT 10th MTNDIV, Handler Sergeant Marcus Harper. The room tilted sideways. How is this possible? I don't know. But there's more. Emma's voice was barely a whisper. I called the base while he was under anesthesia. According to their records, Rex was declared MIA 8 months ago during a reconnaissance mission. They've been looking for him ever since. MIA. I sank into the nearest chair, the dog tags cutting into my palm as I squeezed them. They told me he died with Marcus. Who told you that? The casualty notification officer? Army chaplain? They said both bodies were recovered. My mind raced, trying to make sense of 3 years of accepted truth crumbling around me. If Rex has been missing for 8 months, where the hell has he been? Before Emma could answer, her phone rang. She glanced at the caller ID and frowned. Sheriff Caldwell. That's odd. She answered with her professional voice. Dr. Mitchell. I couldn't hear the other side of the conversation, but I watched Emma's expression grow increasingly tense. I see. No, Sheriff, I haven't treated any animals matching that description recently. Her eyes met mine, and I knew she was lying. Of course. I'll call if anything comes up. She hung up and immediately turned to me. He's looking for a dangerous German shepherd that supposedly attacked livestock on the Hendricks Ranch this morning. Wants to know if any veterinarians in the county have treated gunshot wounds on large dogs. Rex didn't attack any livestock. Look at him, he can barely lift his head. I know. But why is the sheriff so interested in finding him so quickly? Emma's expression darkened. And why did he specifically mention gunshot wounds? Through the surgical suite window, I could see Rex lying on the recovery table, IV lines running into his front leg, monitoring equipment beeping steadily. Even unconscious, there was something regal about him, something that spoke of training and discipline far beyond what any farm dog would possess. Emma, there's something else. When I found him this morning, he wasn't just lying there waiting to die. He was positioned defensively, even wounded, like he was guarding something. What do you mean? I closed my eyes, trying to recall every detail of that roadside encounter. His body was angled toward the tree line, not the road. His head was up, ears alert despite the blood loss. That's not the position of an animal that crawled off to die. That's the position of a soldier maintaining watch. Emma's phone buzzed with a text message. She read it, and her face went pale. It's from Dr. Patterson at the emergency clinic in Billings. He's asking if I've seen a German shepherd with specific injuries. Says there's been a statewide alert issued. Statewide, my stomach dropped. Stomach. For one dog? William, what if Rex didn't just wander away from base? What if he was running from something? Before I could answer, the recovery room monitor started beeping rapidly. We rushed in to find Rex conscious, trying to lift his head despite the sedation. His brown eyes were wild, unfocused, but when he saw me, something shifted. Recognition, relief, trust. Easy, boy, I murmured, moving slowly to his side. You're safe now. Rex's tail gave the faintest wag, and he tried to lift his paw toward my hand. Emma checked his vitals while I spoke to him in the low, calm voice I'd used with shell-shocked soldiers in Vietnam. "That's my good soldier. You did good. Rex, you made it home." At the word home, Rex's ears perked up despite his weakness. He turned his head, searching the room until his gaze settled on something that made him whine softly. Following his line of sight, I saw what had captured his attention, a framed photograph on Emma's desk showing her, Marcus, and me. At last, Christmas dinner before deployment. Marcus was in his dress uniform, Rex sitting proudly at his side. "He remembers," Emma whispered. More than that, I reached carefully into my wallet and pulled out the folded letter I'd been carrying for 3 years, Marcus's final message, delivered by his commanding officer after the funeral. "Emma, I never opened this." I couldn't bear to read his last words. Her eyes widened. "Dad, maybe it's time." My hand shook as I unfolded the worn paper. Marcus's handwriting, strong and confident, filled the page. "Dad, if you're reading this, then I didn't make it home. I need you to know that everything I did over here, I did because you taught me the difference between right and wrong. You taught me that a man protects what matters, even when it costs him everything. Rex is my partner, but more than that, he's my brother. If something happens to me, he'll try to get home to you. Don't let them tell you he's just a dog. He's family, and he'll prove it if you give him the chance. Take care of each other, you, Emma, and Rex. Family isn't always blood. It's the people who would bleed for you. Love, Marcus. P.S. Rex knows where I hid something for you in the barn, something you need to see." The letter trembled in my hands as the implications hit me like a physical blow. "Truth has a way of coming to light," I murmured, my father's old saying echoing in my mind. "What did he hide in the barn?" Emma asked. Before I could answer, Rex lifted his head with tremendous effort and made a sound I'd never heard from a dog before, something between a whine and a howl that seemed to carry years of grief and determination. Some journeys are made with the heart, not the feet. And looking into his eyes, I understood that this magnificent animal had traveled impossible distances to honor a promise made by a dying soldier. "He walked home," I said, the pieces finally falling into place. 8 months, 1,200 miles. Rex walked home to find me. Emma's phone rang again. Sheriff Caldwell. This time, her voice was steady when she answered. "Dr. Mitchell?" A pause. "No. Sheriff, I told you. I haven't seen any dogs matching that description." After she hung up, we stared at each other across Rex's recovery table. Whatever was happening, whatever Rex was running from, we were now part of it. "Dad," Emma said quietly, "I think we need to find out what Marcus hid in that barn." By 4 o'clock, Rex was stable enough to move, though Emma insisted on keeping him under observation. We'd fashioned a makeshift bed in her office where he could rest while staying close to us, every few minutes. His ears would perk up at sounds outside, cars passing, doors closing, the wind rattling the clinic's old windows. His eyes never stopped scanning, never stopped watching. A dog remembers every kindness and every betrayal, my grandfather used to say, and Rex's hypervigilance told a story of betrayal that cut deep. "Dad, we need to talk about what happened in Afghanistan," Emma said, settling into the chair across from my makeshift cot. "Before we go digging around the barn." I'd been dreading this conversation for 3 years. "What do you want to know?" "Everything the Army didn't tell us." The words came slowly, painfully, like pulling shrapnel from an old wound. Marcus's unit was part of a joint operation with local Afghan forces. They were tracking a Taliban cell that had been targeting schools and hospitals. Rex was their primary detection asset, trained to find IEDs, weapons caches, hostages. Emma listened without interruption, her hands gently stroking Rex's head as he dozed fitfully. The last communication from Marcus's team came on a Tuesday morning. They'd found something big, a compound where children were being held. Marcus radioed that they were going in for extraction. I paused. The memory of that phone call from his commanding officer still raw. The next thing we knew, there was an explosion. Massive IED. The Army said it killed everyone instantly, Marcus, 2 other soldiers, and Rex. But Rex wasn't killed. No. I watched the dog's chest rise and fall, each breath a testament to survival against impossible odds. Which means either the Army was wrong about what happened, or they lied. Rex's eyes opened at the sound of my voice, and he struggled to lift his head. In those deep brown eyes, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Trauma. The same haunted look I'd seen in the mirror for 40 years after Vietnam. "He saw it happen," I whispered. "He watched Marcus die." Emma's professional demeanor cracked slightly. Post-traumatic stress in dogs is more common than people realize, especially in military working animals. They form bonds with their handlers that go beyond training. As if summoned by our conversation, the memory I'd been avoiding for 3 years surfaced with brutal clarity. It was 6 months after Marcus deployed. During one of our brief satellite phone calls, "Dad, I need to tell you something about Rex. He's not just my partner, he's my lifeline. Some bonds can't be broken by death itself. If anything happens to me, he'll know. And he'll try to get home. Son, don't talk like that. Listen to me. Rex has been trained for more than just detection work. He knows things, Dad, important things. If he ever shows up at the farm without me, you need to trust him. And you need to be careful who you trust with him. Marcus, you're scaring me. I'm trying to protect you. All of you." I'd chalked it up to combat stress at the time, the paranoia that war breeds in good soldiers. Now, watching Rex's defensive posture even in sleep, I wondered what Marcus had really been trying to warn me about. A soft knock at the clinic door interrupted my thoughts. Through the frosted glass, I could see the outline of a tall figure in uniform. Emma and I exchanged glances. "Dr. Mitchell, Sheriff Caldwell. I'd like to have a word." Emma moved to the window and peered through the blinds. "He's not alone. There's another man with him. Civilian clothes, but he moves like military." Rex was instantly alert, his hackles rising as he caught scent of something through the door. A low growl rumbled in his throat, the first aggressive sound I'd heard from him. "Easy, boy," I murmured, but Rex was focused entirely on the door, his body coiled despite his injuries. "Dr. Mitchell." The sheriff's voice carried an edge of impatience. "This is regarding a public safety matter." Emma straightened her shoulders, every inch the professional veterinarian. "Coming, Sheriff?" She turned to me. "Keep Rex quiet. Something about this doesn't feel right." I watched through the crack in the office door as Emma opened the clinic entrance. Sheriff Caldwell stepped inside, followed by a lean man in his 50s wearing an expensive suit that didn't quite hide the bulge of a shoulder holster. "Sheriff, how can I help you?" "This is Agent Morrison from the Department of Agriculture," Caldwell said, his voice carrying false authority. "We're investigating reports of a dangerous animal that may have rabies exposure." Agent Morrison stepped forward, his eyes scanning the clinic with professional thoroughness. "We have reason to believe a German Shepherd involved in a livestock attack this morning may have sought treatment at veterinary facilities in the area. As I told you on the phone, Sheriff, I haven't treated any German Shepherds today. Mind if we take a look around?" Morrison's tone suggested it wasn't really a question. In the office, Rex had gone rigid. His breathing was shallow, controlled, like a soldier preparing for combat. When Morrison's voice carried through the door, Rex's lips pulled back in a silent snarl that raised the hair on my arms. "I'm afraid that's not possible without a warrant," Emma replied firmly. "Patient confidentiality extends to animal patients as well." "Doc," Sheriff Caldwell's voice hardened, "we're talking about public safety here. This animal has already killed livestock and may have rabies. You want to be responsible if it attacks someone's kid?" Through the crack, I saw Morrison pull out his phone and show Emma something on the screen. Her face went pale. "This is the animal we're looking for. Military trained, extremely dangerous when cornered. If you've seen him, you need to tell us now." Emma was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was steady, but I could hear the fear underneath. "That's a beautiful dog, but no, I haven't seen him." Morrison pocketed his phone and stepped closer to Emma. "Dr. Mitchell, I should mention that harboring a military asset without authorization is a federal crime. Penalty can include up to 10 years in prison." Rex's growl deepened, and I placed my hand on his head, feeling the tension in every muscle. Whatever Morrison was, he wasn't Department of Agriculture, and Rex knew it. "Gentlemen," Emma said firmly, "unless you have a warrant, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I have other patients to attend to." Sheriff Caldwell's hand moved toward his service weapon. "Emma, you've known me since you were a little girl. I'm trying to help you here. Don't make this difficult." That's when I noticed Rex doing something extraordinary. Despite his injuries, despite the sedation, he was moving with deliberate purpose toward the office window, not trying to escape positioning himself for something. Morrison pulled out a business card and set it on Emma's counter. "We'll be in touch, Doctor. And remember, some secrets are too dangerous to keep." After they left, Emma locked the door and rushed back to the office. "Dad, we need to get out of here. Now." "What did Morrison show you?" "A photo of Rex in military gear, full tactical vest, working with Marcus in Afghanistan." Her hands shook as she began gathering Rex's medications. "But that's not what scared me. The photo was dated 3 weeks ago." The room spun. "That's impossible. Marcus died 3 years ago." "I know what I saw, Dad." Rex was alive and working just 3 weeks ago, which means everything we've been told is a lie. Rex had moved to the window and was staring intently at something outside. Following his gaze, I saw Morrison standing beside a black SUV, speaking into a satellite phone. Even from this distance, I could see him gesturing toward the clinic. "Emma, Marcus hid something in the barn, something Rex knows about. Whatever's in that letter, whatever Morrison and Caldwell are really after, I think it's connected to why Marcus really died." Rex turned from the window and looked directly at me. Those intelligent brown eyes holding secrets I was finally ready to uncover. Some bonds can't be broken by death itself, Marcus had said. Maybe it was time to find out what that really meant. By evening, Rex was moving under his own power, though he favored his injured shoulder and tired easily. Emma had closed the clinic early, claiming a family emergency, and we'd moved Rex to my farmhouse under cover of darkness. The old barn stood silhouetted against the Montana sky like a monument to secrets I'd been too afraid to uncover. "Where do we even start looking?" Emma asked, her flashlight beam dancing across the barn's interior. Dust motes swirled in the yellow light, and the smell of old hay and leather brought back memories of Marcus as a boy, hiding in the loft during thunderstorms. Rex had perked up the moment we entered the barn. Despite his injuries, he moved with purpose toward the back corner where Marcus used to keep his 4-H projects. His nose worked methodically along the baseboards, stopping at a section of wall that looked identical to every other weathered board. "There," I said, understanding. Marcus always was clever with hiding spots. Emma ran her hands along the wall where Rex had indicated, and after a moment, one of the boards shifted slightly. Behind it, wrapped in oilcloth, was a metal document box, the kind used to protect important papers from moisture and fire. Inside the box, beneath a stack of photographs and military documents, was a letter addressed to me in Marcus's handwriting. But this wasn't the letter I'd carried for 3 years. This one was marked "Urgent. Open immediately if anything happens to me." My hands shook as I opened it. Emma reading over my shoulder by flashlight. "Dad, if you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true. I'm not dead from an IED explosion like they'll tell you. I was murdered because I discovered something that powerful people will kill to keep secret. Sheriff Caldwell isn't who you think he is. He's been running drugs and weapons through the county for years, using his position to avoid detection, but it's worse than that. He has connections to a military contractor that's been selling weapons to the Taliban, weapons that have killed American soldiers. I have evidence. Photos, financial records, recorded conversations. Everything is hidden in the loose floorboard beneath the grain bin. But Dad, if they killed me, they'll come for the evidence. And they'll come for anyone who might know about it. Rex has been trained to protect this information. He knows where everything is hidden, and he knows who the enemies are. Trust him. His instincts will keep you alive. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you any of this before. I thought I could handle it through proper channels. I was wrong. Pride goes before a fall, like you always said. My pride may have gotten me killed, but maybe Rex can still make this right. The evidence needs to get to Colonel Sarah Rodriguez at the Pentagon. She's the only one I trust. Her contact information is with the documents. I love you, Dad. Take care of Emma. Take care of each other. Marcus. The letter fell from my numb fingers as the full weight of 3 years of lies crashed down on me. My son hadn't died a hero's death saving Afghan children. He'd been murdered by the very people sworn to protect our community. "Oh my God," Emma whispered. "Dad, if Marcus was right about Sheriff Caldwell, then we're in serious danger." I looked at Rex, who was now standing guard at the barn entrance, ears alert to every sound. And Rex has been carrying this secret for 3 years. We found the loose floorboard exactly where Marcus had indicated. Beneath it was a waterproof case containing dozens of photographs, financial documents, and a recording device. The photos showed Sheriff Caldwell meeting with known Taliban operatives, transferring weapons and cash. The financial records traced payments from a defense contractor called Titan Security Solutions directly to Caldwell's offshore accounts. But it was the recordings that made my blood run cold. Marcus's voice, young and determined, documenting meetings he'd secretly observed. Day 15 of surveillance, Caldwell met with Titan operative at 0200 hours. Transfer of weapons confirmed. Target coalition forces in Helmand province. This is treason at the highest level. "Emma, do you realize what this means?" I said, my voice barely a whisper. Marcus spent months gathering this evidence. He risked everything to expose a conspiracy that goes all the way to the Pentagon. And Rex has been protecting it ever since. As if responding to his name, Rex moved to my side and gently took my wrist in his mouth, not biting, but guiding. He led me to another section of the barn, where loose hay concealed a military-grade radio transmitter. "Marcus set up a communication system," Emma breathed. "He was planning to blow the whistle." Before I could respond, Rex's body went rigid, his hackles rose, and a low growl rumbled in his throat. Through the barn's old windows, I could see vehicle headlights approaching up the long driveway. "They found us," I said, quickly shoving the evidence back into its hiding place. "Emma, is there another way out of here? The old root cellar connects to a tunnel that leads to the creek. Marcus and I used to play in it." Rex was already moving toward the back of the barn, his military training evident in every calculated step. Despite his injuries, he was thinking tactically, assessing escape routes and defensive positions. The vehicles stopped in front of the house, 2 of them, engines running. Through the barn windows, I could see flashlight beams sweeping the property. "Dr. Harper," Sheriff Caldwell's voice carried across the yard, artificially friendly. "We know you're here. We just want to talk." Rex pressed against my leg, guiding me toward the root cellar entrance. His message was clear: trust him, follow him, survive him. "Dad," Emma whispered as we prepared to descend into the tunnel. "What about the evidence? We can't leave it. We'll come back for it. Right now. We need to stay alive long enough to get it to the right people." The root cellar was exactly as I remembered from Marcus's childhood adventures. Dark, musty, with rough stone walls that wept moisture. The tunnel beyond stretched into darkness, barely wide enough for a man to crawl through. Rex entered first, moving with surprising agility despite his bandaged shoulder. Behind us, I could hear the barn doors crashing open. "Check every stall, every corner," Caldwell ordered. "The old man's here somewhere, and that dog is with him." We crawled through the tunnel in silence, Rex leading the way with the confidence of someone who knew exactly where he was going. The passage seemed to stretch forever, my arthritic knees screaming against the rough stone. But Rex's determination pulled me forward. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, we emerged near the creek that ran along the back of my property. Rex immediately moved to higher ground, positioning himself where he could observe our back trail while remaining hidden. "Smart boy," I murmured, finally understanding the depth of his training. "You've been in situations like this before." Emma's phone had no signal in the creek bottom, and we were miles from the nearest neighbor. But Rex seemed to have a plan. He led us along the creek bed toward town, moving with the tactical precision of a soldier conducting a reconnaissance mission. "Dad, I need to tell you something," Emma said as we followed Rex through the darkness. "Something I should have told you years ago." "What is it, sweetheart?" "Before Marcus deployed, he asked me to promise him something. He said if anything ever happened to him, if Rex ever came home alone, I should help you understand that you can't unbreak a heart, but you can learn to let it heal." I stopped walking, the weight of 3 years of grief and regret settling on my shoulders like a physical burden. He knew, didn't he? He knew they were going to kill him. I think so. And I think he trained Rex not just to survive, but to come home and help us heal. All of us. Rex had stopped ahead of us, his head tilted as if listening to something we couldn't hear. After a moment, he continued forward, but his posture had changed. He was no longer just leading us to safety, he was leading us home, to face whatever came next. "A good dog teaches us how to love without condition," I said, remembering something my own father had told me decades ago. Maybe it's time I learned that lesson. In the distance, I could see the lights of Glacier Falls, and somewhere in that small town was the truth about my son's death. Rex had carried that truth for 3 years, waiting for someone to be brave enough to hear it. Tonight, that someone was going to be me. By 10 o'clock that night, we'd made it to the abandoned Hendricks Ranch on the outskirts of town, a property that had been foreclosed on 2 years ago and left to decay. Rex had led us there with the certainty of someone who'd scouted the location before. And as we approached the old farmhouse, I began to understand why. "Dad, look at this," Emma whispered, her flashlight illuminating fresh tire tracks in the muddy driveway. "Someone's been using this place recently." Rex's behavior had changed dramatically as we neared the property. Every muscle in his body was coiled tight, his head low, moving with the predatory grace of a wolf stalking prey. But there was something else in his posture recognition. He'd been here before. The sound hit us first, a low, guttural barking that spoke of pain and fear. Then another voice joined it, and another, until the night was filled with the desperate cries of animals in distress. "Jesus Christ," I breathed, following Rex toward a large barn behind the main house. "What is that?" Through the gaps in the barn walls, we could see electric lights and hear human voices mixing with the animal sounds. Rex positioned himself at the corner of the building where he could observe without being seen, his training evident in every calculated movement. "Stay here," I whispered to Emma, but she was already shaking her head. "Not a chance. If there are injured animals in there, they need medical attention." We crept closer to the barn, Rex leading the way with tactical precision, through a crack in the weathered siding. The scene inside made my stomach turn. A makeshift arena had been constructed in the center of the barn, surrounded by crude bleachers filled with men holding wads of cash and shouting encouragement at two dogs tearing each other apart in the ring. But it was the sight beyond the arena that triggered Rex's reaction. Along the far wall, at least a dozen dogs were chained in cramped cages, German shepherds, Rottweilers, pit bulls, all bearing the scars of forced combat. Some were so injured they could barely lift their heads. "Evil prospers when good men do nothing," I muttered, my grandfather's words echoing in my mind as I watched Sheriff Caldwell standing ringside, counting money with the enthusiasm of a carnival barker. "Ladies and gentlemen," Caldwell announced to the crowd, "our final bout of the evening features two special acquisitions, military-trained animals with confirmed kill records." My blood turned to ice as two handlers dragged a pair of German shepherds into the arena. Both were thin, scarred, and moved with the broken spirit of animals who had given up hope. But one of them looked familiar, the same build as Rex, the same intelligent eyes, now dulled with trauma and despair. "That's Ghost." Rex's body language communicated as clearly as speech. He'd gone rigid, a low whine escaping his throat that spoke of recognition and grief. "That's my partner." Emma gripped my arm so tightly I could feel her fingernails through my jacket. "Dad, we have to stop this. There are at least 20 men in there, all armed. We need to call—" I stopped myself, remembering that the sheriff himself was orchestrating this nightmare. "We need to get help from outside the county." But Rex had other ideas. He was already moving toward the barn's side entrance, his injuries forgotten in the face of seeing his fellow K9 warriors being tortured for entertainment. A cornered animal is the most dangerous, my father had taught me. And Rex was no longer cornered. He was hunting. "Rex, no," I hissed. But he was beyond hearing human commands now. 3 years of carrying the weight of his partner's death, 3 years of survivor's guilt, had crystallized into a singular purpose: rescue his pack. The side door was secured with a simple latch that Rex manipulated with his teeth, a skill that spoke of extensive training and covert operations. The door swung open silently, and Rex disappeared into the shadows inside the barn. "We have to help him," Emma said, her veterinarian's oath overriding her sense of self-preservation. "Those animals need immediate medical attention. Emma, these men killed our son. They won't hesitate to kill us. Then we'd better make sure they don't get the chance." Inside the barn, the crowd's bloodlust had reached a fever pitch. The two German shepherds in the arena were refusing to fight each other, their military training making them reluctant to attack fellow service animals. This was making the spectators angry, and I could hear them demanding their money back. "These dogs are defective," one man shouted. "They won't even fight." Sheriff Caldwell stepped into the arena with an electric cattle prod. "Sometimes you need to provide proper motivation." That's when Rex struck. He emerged from the shadows like a ghost, moving with silent precision toward the cage area. His first target was the locking mechanism on Ghost's cage, a complex system that he manipulated with the skill of someone who'd been trained in escape and evasion techniques. The crowd was so focused on the arena that no one noticed the systematic liberation happening behind them. Rex moved from cage to cage, freeing the imprisoned animals with efficient, practiced movements. But these dogs were too traumatized, too broken to fight back. They cowered in their opened cages, afraid to believe that freedom was possible. That's when I understood Rex's real plan. He wasn't trying to start a fight, he was providing an escape route for the other animals while drawing attention to himself. Rex stepped into the arena. The crowd fell silent as they registered the presence of a new dog, one that moved with military bearing despite his obvious injuries. Sheriff Caldwell's face went white as he recognized the animal he'd been hunting for weeks. Well, Caldwell said, his voice carrying false bravado. Look what we have here. The famous military dog himself. Rex positioned himself between Caldwell and the two exhausted German shepherds. His message clear, you'll have to go through me first. This dog is worth more than all the others combined, Caldwell announced to the crowd. Military-trained killer, responsible for multiple Taliban deaths. Gentlemen, place your bets on the bout of the century. The crowd erupted in cheers and waved money, but I could see the fear in Caldwell's eyes. He knew Rex's reputation, knew what a trained military animal could do to human beings. Dad, we have to create a distraction, Emma whispered. Give Rex a chance to get those other dogs out of here. What kind of distraction? Emma was already moving toward the barn's electrical panel, the kind that levels the playing field. Before I could stop her, she threw the main breaker, plunging the barn into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, but the few battery-powered floods created a hellscape of shifting shadows and confused shouts. In the chaos, Rex implemented what I can only describe as a masterpiece of tactical warfare. Using the darkness and confusion, he guided the freed dogs toward the side entrance while simultaneously engaging anyone who tried to stop them. His movements were precise, calculated. This wasn't random violence, but surgical strikes designed to disable threats while protecting the innocent. But Sheriff Caldwell had drawn his service weapon and was firing blind into the darkness, more concerned with killing Rex than with hitting the panicking crowd. You want to know what really happened to your son? Caldwell shouted over the chaos. He was getting too close to our operation, so we arranged for him to have an accident. Too bad his dog wasn't with him at the time. The rage that swept through me was unlike anything I'd experienced since Vietnam. This man had murdered my son, tortured innocent animals, and corrupted everything he'd sworn to protect. Some bonds can't be broken by death itself, Marcus had written. And in that moment, I felt my son's spirit demanding justice. I found Caldwell's dropped flashlight and used it to blind him as I tackled him to the ground. At 72, I wasn't the soldier I'd once been, but grief and fury gave me strength I didn't know I still possessed. You killed my boy, I growled, pinning him beneath me. You killed Marcus for money. Your precious son was going to destroy everything. Caldwell gasped. The weapons trade, the drug routes, the whole network. He had evidence that would have brought down people in Washington. Good. I hope it brings down every last one of you. Around us, the chaos was beginning to subside. Rex had successfully evacuated most of the injured dogs, and the crowd of spectators had fled rather than risk being identified by law enforcement. In the emergency lighting, I could see Emma treating wounded animals with supplies from her veterinary bag, but our victory was short-lived. Through the barn entrance, I could see more vehicles arriving, black SUVs with government plates. Morrison and his team had found us. You're too late, old man, Caldwell wheezed beneath me. Even if you have Marcus's evidence, you'll never live to deliver it. There are too many people involved, too much money at stake. Rex appeared at my side, his brown eyes reflecting the emergency lights like amber flames. In his mouth, He carried something I recognized, a satellite phone, military grade, the kind used for secure communications. "Smart boy," I whispered, understanding immediately. While I'd been fighting Caldwell, Rex had been implementing the final phase of Marcus's plan. The phone was already dialed, already connected. Colonel Sarah Rodriguez's voice crackled through the speaker. "This is Colonel Rodriguez. I've been waiting 3 years for this call." "Colonel Rodriguez." I gasped into the satellite phone, still pinning Sheriff Caldwell to the barn floor. "This is William Harper, Marcus's father. I have the evidence." "Mr. Harper, thank God. Are you safe? My sources indicate hostile forces are converging on your location." Through the barn entrance, I could see Morrison's men taking tactical positions around the building. Rex had positioned himself near Emma, who was still treating wounded animals, his body language indicating he was prepared to defend her with his life. "Colonel, we're surrounded. Sheriff Caldwell and a man named Morrison. They're part of the conspiracy Marcus uncovered. They killed my son. Morrison isn't military. Mr. Harper, he's a contractor working for Titan Security Solutions, the same company your son was investigating." Rodriguez's voice carried grim authority. "I've been building a case against them for 3 years, but I needed Marcus's evidence to make it stick." Caldwell laughed bitterly beneath me. "You'll never get that evidence out of here alive, old man. Morrison's orders are to eliminate all witnesses and destroy everything." "Colonel, Marcus hid the evidence in my barn. Financial records, photographs, recordings, everything needed to prove the weapons trafficking and my son's murder. Listen carefully. Mr. Harper, I have a team en route, but they're still 20 minutes out. You need to survive until then, and you need to protect that evidence at all costs." Before I could respond, Morrison's amplified voice echoed through the barn. "William Harper, this is Agent Morrison with the Department of Defense. You're harboring stolen military assets and classified materials. Come out peacefully and no one gets hurt." Rex's ears flattened against his head at the sound of Morrison's voice, and he began moving in a pattern I recognized from old Army training manuals, establishing a defensive perimeter, identifying cover points, calculating fields of fire. This dog had been trained for more than just detection work. He'd been trained for combat operations. "Some secrets are kept to protect, not to deceive," I murmured, remembering Marcus's letter. My son had known this day would come, had prepared Rex for it. Emma looked up from bandaging a wounded Rottweiler. "Dad, what's our play here?" "We hold position and protect the evidence until Rodriguez's team arrives." I turned to Caldwell. "How many men does Morrison have? Enough to turn this place into a graveyard." Rex had found something in the shadows, a tactical vest, military issue, probably belonging to one of the dogfighting organizers who'd fled. But this wasn't just any vest. It was a K9 handler's gear, complete with communication equipment and protective plating. Rex knew exactly what it was and what it meant. "Emma, help me get this on him." "Dad, you want to armor up a wounded dog? That wounded dog is the only one here with actual combat training." I started securing the vest around Rex's torso, his cooperation telling me he understood the gravity of our situation. Marcus trained him for situations exactly like this. Morrison's voice came again, closer now. "Mr. Harper, you have 60 seconds to surrender the dog and any materials in your possession. After that, we come in with authorization to use lethal force. through gaps in the barn walls. I could see Morrison's team moving with military precision. These weren't local deputies or even federal agents. These were private military contractors, heavily armed and operating with no legal oversight. "Colonel," I spoke quietly into the satellite phone, "Morrison's people aren't law enforcement. They're mercenaries." "I know. That's why my team is coming in armed for war." Rodriguez paused. "Mr. Harper, there's something else you need to know. Rex isn't just carrying Marcus's evidence. He's been programmed with additional intelligence names, dates, financial transactions. Everything is stored in his training memories." "What do you mean?" "Military working dogs are trained to remember and respond to specific sequences of commands that unlock different behavioral protocols. Rex has been carrying 3 years' worth of classified intelligence in his head, waiting for the right person to access it." I looked at Rex, his brown eyes meeting mine with an intelligence that suddenly seemed far deeper than mere animal instinct. "How do I access it?" "The command sequence should be in Marcus's materials. Look for anything marked Protocol 7. Morrison's 60 seconds were up. The barn lights exploded in a shower of sparks as his team cut the power, plunging us into darkness punctuated only by the emergency lighting and muzzle flashes as they began their assault. Rex transformed. The wounded, traumatized dog disappeared, replaced by a precision weapon moving with lethal grace through the shadows. His first target was the man trying to flank Emma's position, a quick, silent takedown that left the contractor unconscious and disarmed. "Stay down," I shouted to Emma as bullets splintered the wooden walls around us. "Let Rex work." But Emma had her own ideas about survival, using her veterinarian's knowledge of animal behavior. She began releasing the remaining caged dogs, not the broken, traumatized animals they'd been moments before, but creatures whose pack instincts had been awakened by Rex's leadership. The barn became a theater of chaos as German shepherds, Rottweilers, and pit bulls moved through the darkness like furry ghosts, their handlers' abuse forgotten in the face of a common enemy. These dogs had been bred and trained for combat. Now they had a leader who reminded them what they were capable of. Morrison's voice crackled through his team's radio. "Forget the capture order. Kill them all. We'll sort out the evidence later." That's when I found it tucked inside Rex's tactical vest. Marcus had hidden a laminated card with a series of commands written in military code. At the top, in my son's handwriting, Protocol 7, Final Authority. "Rex," I called out, hoping he could hear me over the gunfire. "Charlie 7-7, Alpha." Rex froze mid-stride, his head turning toward me with sudden, complete attention. Something had changed in his eyes, a new level of awareness, of purpose. "Tango Mike 4-1. I continued, reading from Marcus's card. Rex's entire posture shifted. He moved to the center of the barn and released a howl unlike anything I'd ever heard, not the cry of a wounded animal, but the battle call of an alpha wolf claiming his territory. The effect on the other dogs was instantaneous. They stopped their random attacks and formed up around Rex in a coordinated formation that spoke of military training none of them should have possessed. But I was beginning to understand that this dogfighting ring had been more than just entertainment. It had been a training ground for something much darker. "Oscar, Mike, Bravo!" I shouted the final command sequence. Rex and his pack moved as one, flowing through the barn like a military unit executing a coordinated assault. Morrison's contractors found themselves facing not random animal attacks, but tactical strikes from opponents who understood cover, flanking maneuvers, and coordinated assault patterns. "Fall back," Morrison screamed into his radio. "We need heavy weapons." But it was too late for Morrison's team. Rex had turned their superior firepower against them by using the darkness, the confined space, and their own assumptions about what they were fighting. These men had come prepared to kill a few humans and capture a dog. They hadn't come prepared for war against a pack of militarily trained animals led by a K-9 operative who'd been planning this battle for 3 years. "Colonel Rodriguez," I spoke into the satellite phone as the gunfire died down. "We're still breathing. My team just breached the perimeter. Hold your position for 30 more seconds." Through the barn entrance, I could see new tactical lights, different patterns, different formations. Professional soldiers, not mercenaries. When the dust settled, Morrison lay unconscious beside Sheriff Caldwell, zip-tied and bleeding from dog bites. His team was either dead, unconscious, or fled into the Montana night. Rex stood in the center of the barn, surrounded by his pack of rescued fighters, all of them looking to him for further orders. "Stand down, soldier," I said gently, and Rex's military bearing relaxed back into the wounded but determined dog I'd found on the highway. Colonel Rodriguez entered the barn with her team, a woman in her 50s with the bearing of someone accustomed to command. She surveyed the scene with professional assessment before focusing on Rex. "So, you're the dog who's been carrying our secrets for 3 years. She knelt in front of Rex, who sat at attention despite his injuries. "Your handler would be proud." "Colonel," I said, "there's more evidence hidden at my farm. Financial records, photographs, everything Marcus died trying to protect. We'll secure it all." Rodriguez stood, her expression grim with purpose. "Mr. Harper, what your son uncovered goes deeper than weapons trafficking. Titan Security Solutions has been selling American military intelligence to the highest bidder for years. The evidence Rex has been carrying will bring down a network that reaches into the Pentagon itself." Emma emerged from treating the last of the wounded animals, her clothes torn and bloody, but her eyes bright with purpose. "Dad, what happens now?" I looked at Rex, at the pack of rescued dogs surrounding him, at my daughter whom I'd nearly lost to pride and stubbornness. Now we heal, all of us. Love finds a way, even through death. Marcus had written, standing in that barn surrounded by the evidence of his sacrifice and the loyalty of the dog who'd carried his truth across impossible distances. I finally understood what my son had really been trying to tell me. Some bonds truly can't be broken by death itself. 6 months later, I stood in the same spot where I'd first found Rex bleeding on Highway 89, but this time the Montana morning carried the promise of spring instead of the weight of secrets. Rex sat beside me, his golden coat gleaming in the sunrise, the bullet scar on his shoulder barely visible beneath his thick fur. He'd lost some mobility in that leg, but his spirit had never been stronger. The trials had ended 3 weeks ago. Sheriff Caldwell received life in prison without parole for conspiracy, murder, and treason. Morrison and 12 other Titan security operatives faced similar sentences. The weapons trafficking network that had cost Marcus his life was finally dismantled, its tentacles reaching all the way to 2 Pentagon officials and a defense secretary who'd resigned in disgrace. Home is where someone thinks of you and worries when you don't come back, I said to Rex, repeating the words that had been carved into Marcus's new headstone. You brought him home, didn't you, boy? Rex's tail thumped against the ground, and he nuzzled my hand with the gentle affection that had replaced his initial wariness. The nightmares still came sometimes for both of us, but they were becoming less frequent, gentler somehow, as if Marcus's spirit was finally at peace. Emma's veterinary clinic had become something of a legend in Montana. The Battle Barn, as local newspapers had dubbed it, had transformed her practice into a specialized center for rehabilitating traumatized working animals. She'd received federal funding to expand her facilities, and dogs from across the country now came to her for the kind of healing that went beyond medicine. "Dad, the transport truck just arrived," Emma called from the clinic entrance. Today was special. We were expecting new residents, military working dogs retiring from active duty, who needed the kind of care that only someone who understood their warrior spirits could provide. Rex rose immediately at the sound of the truck, his ears perked with interest rather than alarm. Over the past months, he'd become the unofficial pack leader for the dozen rescue dogs now living on our expanded property. His ability to communicate with traumatized animals bordered on miraculous, as if his own journey through hell and back had given him the wisdom to guide others toward healing. The first dog off the transport was a German shepherd named Ghost, not the broken animal we'd rescued from the dogfighting ring, but a confident, healthy dog whose eyes sparkled with intelligence and curiosity. Emma's treatment had worked miracles, but it was Rex's patient mentorship that had truly brought Ghost back to life. "Look who's home," Emma said, grinning as Ghost bounded toward Rex. The two dogs touched noses in greeting, their body language speaking of brotherhood forged in shared trauma and mutual healing. Behind Ghost came three more dogs, a Belgian Malinois named Sergeant, a Labrador named Hope, and another German shepherd called Ranger, all military retirees, all carrying invisible wounds that would take time and patience to heal. "Family isn't always blood," I murmured, watching Rex begin his gentle assessment of the newcomers. "It's the people who would bleed for you." Emma joined me, her arm slipping around my waist in a gesture that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Our relationship had healed slowly, built on shared purpose and the understanding that love requires forgiveness of others and ourselves. "Sarah called this morning," Emma said. "The twins are walking now. Marcus Jr. took his first steps yesterday." Sarah, Marcus's widow, had moved back to Montana 2 months ago with her twins Marcus Jr. and Hope, born 3 weeks after the trials ended. The babies had never known their father, but they'd taken to Rex immediately, as if recognizing something familiar in his gentle strength. "She wants to bring them by this afternoon to visit Uncle Rex," Emma continued. "I think Marcus Jr. is going to be a dog handler himself someday. He follows Rex everywhere. The boy's got good instincts." We stood in comfortable silence, watching Rex work with the new arrivals. His method was always the same patient observation, gentle approach, careful establishment of trust. He never forced interaction, never pushed too hard, but somehow always managed to reach the broken spirits in his care. Colonel Rodriguez had offered Rex a position as a therapy dog at military hospitals across the country. The publicity value alone would have been enormous, the dog who'd brought down a conspiracy. The K9 hero who'd walked 1,200 miles to deliver justice. But Rex had shown no interest in traveling. His work was here, with the damaged and discarded animals who needed his particular brand of healing. A good dog teaches us how to love without condition, I said, remembering my grandfather's words. Rex has been teaching us that lesson every day. The afternoon brought visitors Sarah with the twins, Colonel Rodriguez for her monthly check-in, and a reporter from a veterans magazine who was writing about innovative therapy programs for military working dogs. But the most meaningful visitor was unexpected. Thomas Whitehorse, the tribal elder who'd first told me about Sarah's research project, arrived driving a pickup truck that had seen better decades. At 85, he moved slowly, but with the dignity of someone who'd witnessed history and understood its deeper currents. "Red Cloud," he said, using the name he'd called me since childhood. "I came to see the wolf who chose to become a dog." Rex approached Thomas with unusual reverence, as if sensing something ancient and wise in the old man's presence. Thomas knelt carefully and placed his weathered hands on Rex's head, speaking in the Lakota language my grandfather had taught me decades ago. "What did you tell him?" I asked. I thanked him for bringing the family back together. I told him his spirit journey was complete, but his earth journey still had purpose. Thomas's eyes crinkled with humor. I also told him the ancient spirits are proud of him. That evening, as the sun set over the Montana mountains, our extended family gathered on the clinic's back porch. Emma grilled burgers while Sarah fed the twins. Rex and his pack resting in the shade of the old oak tree where Marcus used to climb as a boy. The rescued dogs had integrated into our routine as if they'd always been part of it, which, in a way, they had been. "You know what the best part is?" Emma said, settling into the chair beside mine with a cold beer. "Marcus would have loved this, all of us together. Healing together." "He did love it," I replied, watching Rex gently supervise as Marcus Jr. toddled among the dogs. "That's why he planned it this way." Sarah looked up from changing Hope's diaper. "What do you mean?" I pulled out the final letter Marcus had left, the one I'd found just last week while cleaning out his old room. This one had been addressed to all of us, sealed with instructions not to open until the family is whole again. Dad, Emma, Sarah, and whoever else becomes part of our pack. If you're reading this, then Rex succeeded in his mission. Not just delivering the evidence or exposing the conspiracy, but something more important, bringing our family back together. I knew Dad's pride and Emma's hurt and Sarah's grief would keep you all apart unless something forced you to work together. Rex was my insurance policy, not just a dog, but a healer, a protector, a reminder that love doesn't end when the heart stops beating. Take care of each other. Take care of the ones who have no one else. And remember that home isn't a place, it's the people and animals who choose to stand with you when everything falls apart. Rex will show you the way. He always has. Love. Always. Marcus. As I finished reading, Rex rose from his spot under the oak tree and made his rounds, checking on each member of our extended family, ensuring everyone was safe, content, protected. When he reached me, he sat down and placed his head on my knee, brown eyes reflecting the peace he'd fought so hard to create. "Some journeys end where they began," I said, scratching behind his ears. but the really important ones never end at all. In the fading light, surrounded by the family Rex had helped me reclaim, I finally understood what my son had been trying to tell me. Love truly does find a way, even through death. And sometimes it comes on 4 legs, with a loyal heart and the patience to wait as long as it takes for broken people to remember how to be whole. Rex's tail thumped against the porch boards, and in that simple sound, I heard the echo of Marcus's laughter, the promise of tomorrow, and the quiet contentment of a mission finally complete. As we close this journey with William and Rex, we're reminded that it's never too late for redemption, for healing broken bonds, or for finding purpose in our later years. Like William at 72, many of us have retreated into our own cabins of solitude, whether after losing loved ones, facing health challenges, or watching our children build lives that seem distant from our own. We tell ourselves we're protecting others from our pain, but often we're just protecting ourselves from the risk of being hurt again. Rex's unwavering loyalty mirrors the love that surrounds us even when we can't see it in estranged children who still hope for reconciliation, in old friendships waiting to be rekindled, in communities that need our wisdom and experience. The dog's 1,200-mile journey home reminds us that some connections transcend time, distance, and even death itself. Our greatest contributions may still lie ahead, in the relationships we mend, the wisdom we share, and the love we choose to give without condition. William discovered that healing others, whether wounded animals or fractured families, became the path to healing himself. In our golden years, we have the unique opportunity to be mentors, protectors, and bridges between generations. The scars we carry from war, loss, divorce, or disappointment don't disqualify us from love. They make our love more precious because it's been tested and proven true. Home isn't just where we live. It's where someone thinks of us and worries when we don't come back. Family isn't always blood. It's the people and even the animals who would stand with us when everything falls apart, like Rex. We all have the capacity to make journeys that seem impossible, to carry hope across vast distances, and to love with a loyalty that time cannot break. Your story isn't over. Your most meaningful chapter might just be beginning, waiting for you to open your heart to the Rex in your life, whether that's a grandchild who needs your stories, a neighbor who could use your help, or a cause that ignites the fire you thought had died. Sometimes the rescue goes both ways, and sometimes the love we give away is exactly what saves us. Questions for reflection. What 1,200-mile journey is your heart calling you to make to reconnect with someone you love, who in your life might be waiting for you to come home, either literally or emotionally? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story of loyalty, loss, and love might be exactly what another reader needs to hear today.